Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to The Mouse Says the Butler Didn't Do It. We are continuing on tonight with the story of a New Hope Thanksgiving, written by myself, Nico Scher, under the pen name of Cheryl Ann Butler. As you can hear in the background, the mouse is voicing her opinion with both Chuck and Maggie. She is, shall we say, a little grumpy tonight. In our last sequence of the story, Ghram learned a fair amount about his birth mother, her reputation that was kept quiet amongst the Lions' front line, and the fact that her lionesses, their women, would have done anything for her to keep her happy, to make her world right, as George Carlson had completely messed it up and continued to do in the forcing of a marriage due to her pregnancy prior to so. Ghram also found out, along with his children, that the lions, their women, the lionesses, have claws and teeth that can unsheath and will sink into flesh if need be to protect their men, their children, and themselves due to a winter blizzard brawl that took place during one of their high school football games. So we now continue with a New Hope Thanksgiving in chapter 106. Ghram looked from his daughter to his mother. Pims of Pims Construction, the one that tried to hire half of Cody's crew away, and they told her to shove it. Ghram looked at his father. They're the ones wanted $30,000 to fix the back porch when we were asking for bids, because they told us half the back of the building would have to be repaired, Chris told him. I remember Uncle Hot, Errol, and Flynn got under there with me and Cody, and we realized they were full of shit. One of the beams had deteriorated after almost 300 years, and a footer had sunk. The family of Mandula got together with a few of Cody's men to make sure we did it correctly, and made sure we were all safe with the use of their jacks going under and lifting it little by little. They put the support beams in and relayed the concrete paving and footer, and we were able to set her down and repair her in a weekend, and did it for $200 and our sweat equity. We had a family cookout to thank the guys and their families that gave us a hand with the place. One and the same, her daughter, the infamous Willow, tried to pull something on Stevie a couple of years ago over rain, when they first started to settle into their relationship and started dating. It continued right up and including the week before the two of them got married. I think, Tootie, that's what you're remembering and speaking about. Stevie told her to be aware that what she puts out in the universe will return to her 3 times fold and bite you in the ass. Scared her candy-striped kiss ass when it turned out her new husband was sleeping with not only her mother and her older sister, Elma, and the fact is he may be Light's father. Then divorced her 5 weeks into the marriage and married her girlfriend, who was her maid of honor. And that's when she found out he had fathered 2 other children by 2 other friends of hers. Emly shrugged. She's gone after other married or spoken for men as well. And at this point, if she wants Thurston W., Tootie sat next to her brother. They were in a relationship in high school, and that item dissolved when she started playing with Gray Zoltz of the Zoltz Financial Interest family. That's who Stevie warned her about when she went after Rain. She married him after she dumped Von Torp, and she's been trying to get Thurston W. back. Well, to tell you the truth, she can have that bastard. Good for you, sweetie. With that family, what goes around comes around, and may what they put out there come at them many times more. So mote it be. Ethel swirled her hand and gave a nod to Emly. Silver turned in his seat to look at his wife. I do believe I may have been trying to get those beautiful white fangs of yours out of my hand, my lady she-wolf, and I missed that particular action with Sonny and Mac that you were talking about earlier. Do tell, Emily chuckled. Sonny had her dead to rights. Janet Pims, that is. She was the one who started the whole thing. She came up with the idea months before, but the night of the game, that bitch, she blindsided Rannella as we came out of the girls' dressing room. The guys would wait by the exit and fall in line at the back of our pyramid structure as we came out, as if we weren't all going to freeze our asses off in minus 5-degree weather in those skinny-ass outfits we wore, and with a wind chill factor that took it to 15 below. Then this bitch decides she's going to get our queen. She's up in the stands with Lisa and Buffy, and she knew how'd we come out of the tunnel in formation. And with them, because their mother worked for the Pims family in the office, was perfection and excellent Carl. Oh, crap, Silver stated. Oh, yeah. This night is what started the war between her and our queen. Rannella being the captain, she would be in the lead, and we'd fan out like a pyramid behind her. Rannella, Sonny at her right shoulder, Maggie on her left. Then from right to left would be Bet, Solo, and me. Next row, Desiree, Effie here, Peggy, and Gilly. Finally, Liliana would roll out with Coco Chanel to be flanked by Colette, who carried their blankets on the left, and Lottie, Mama Licorice, with the electric padded quilt for Coco that would get plugged into the small generator. One of our dads, or several of them, they all chipped in to get it, as Pat Pooh and Yaya had purchased the big propane heater. Lottie was always on the right because the heater and propane tank with the generator were already on the sideline by our bench, with the cooler filled of hot chocolate that Liliana had always made for us with a hint of nutmeg, a shitload of sugar, and cinnamon. And man, is that stuff good. It's her recipe that I use at the end, Chris admitted. Yep, and Coach Blair would huff it out there himself for us and make sure we had the cups, 'cause he liked the taste of it himself. The guys, Jewel, Damien, and Reuben would step in behind the last row of us lionesses, and Gabe would be doing cartwheels as we came out of the tunnel, and he was behind us all, as he was the Lions mascot in that dizzy-ass moth-eating costume with the oversized head. He was on the gymnastics team with the guys as well. Goes and dumps a 5-gallon bucket of iced water over Rannella. In the process of the bitches bolting from the stands, when she took off from the bleachers, 'cause she knew damn right well us lionesses would go hunting for her. She dropped that bucket, and then Perfection kicked it to get clear of it to flee. And Sonny, Sonny got busted in the head. The problem was that bucket had been used to mix cement, post-hole mix, or plaster or something. It was very heavy and lined with that shit. It had a thick layer on the bottom. It opened Sonny up wide. "Oh, gods, Grandma!" Tootie blinked at them. "Well, blood's pouring everywhere, but she's worried about Rannella freezing to death." Rannella shouts, "Let's do this, lionesses and lions. Form up." Her flipping teeth were chattering as she's spitting out water, and I swear to the deities and gods, she was starting to develop icicles in her eyelashes as she's shouting this. Sonny wouldn't let them stitch her. She performed with the wounds bleeding down her face through the bandages she finally let Lottie put on her. We grabbed her and got her to the bench. Lottie got her hands on the first aid kit from the sidelines and patched her up as best as she could. That was her first experience with becoming a damn fine pediatrics trauma nurse. Coach Blair was furious. He was ready to call the game and press charges against the girls that had done that. We said, hell no. Let's beat them on the field and with the halftime show and our cheers. Where the hell was your coach? Chris asked. I don't remember her even being there. She was nowhere to be found. Coach Blair even looked for her. Rhoda Langtry had resigned 2 weeks prior to take a cheerleading coach's position for the University of Mexico City. They offered her a house and a big salary. When money talked with that woman, she walked. Emily made a face. Unlike Coach Terry Goodman, she was the best and performed the cheers with us in our senior year and then the following years until she herself had retired. She could do a backflip at the age of 72 and land it solid. Are you serious, M2? I mean, I can believe about the coach because Mama Licorice said if she didn't have her belly, she could probably still do a flying backflip even after having 12 kids. And Aunt Sonny performed with a busted head? Yes, Storm, on all 3 accounts. I think Lottie could still do that move she perfected. Emily gave a quick nod. By halftime, Sonny looked like something out of a slasher movie, and Rannella was half frozen. I knew about the water bit, but I didn't know Sonny got her head busted open, Chris growled. I also remember her spending part of the night in the hospital. I think we all did, didn't we? He looked at Silver. Yep, quarterback, you remember right, Silver agreed as he drank his coffee. The fourth quarter, Rannella was so cold she went off the top of the pyramid on the sideline and missed the twins' arms because her eyelids were frozen shut. Missed the guys spotting her as well because they couldn't see for shit with the storm and unfortunately were about 8 inches off their usual mark. She flipped past the twins, and as Jewel and Dame made the grab, they caught her legs, and Reuben didn't get a hand on her fast enough, and she hit the frozen snow-covered turf, taking him with her and slamming her head into the ground off of his shoulder. She popped back up and still finished the cheer. Coming away from that devastating landing to make it to the heater and the benches, she was feeling her way. When she turned, they rushed us as we were trying to get cups of hot cocoa and a blanket or something around our queen. Rannella raised her head. Sonny's back was turned to the field area, but Sonny's ESP went off. Ethel flashed her hands as if they were in convulsions. Emily gave a nod. "Oh, yes, we mean haywire." She just managed to shout, "Witches!" She shoved a blind Rannella out of the way for her to crash into the cocoa cooler and get doused a second time. And Sonny turned as Jeanette swung, and what hit her wasn't a fist, but a yard line marking post. Then, when she went down, it was all over but the shouting. She sprung from the ground in a way that would make any of the family cats proud, and was all over Jeanette, who was the Red Hawks captain. She almost put Jeanette down when the Lions' front line broke formation on the field and busted ass to get to us. The defense guys blocked the Red Hawks' defense and offensive lines from attacking you guys from behind, as their offense charged you guys and tried to enter the fray that their cheerleading squad had started. We're fighting like hell to protect Rannella, and all of a sudden, there's this wall of white. Ethel just shook her head. "A wall of white nothing. It was snow blinding everybody," Ethel stated. Exactly what we referred to as from that night on. Matt comes out of a wall of white blinding snow. To make matters worse, the opposing team's uniforms were white and blended into the freaking storm. So none of you or us could see what was an opposing player, a cheerleader, or a wall of snow, as it created a squall around us. He put one hand out, 4 foot away from Sonny, as he shielding his eyes from the snow. Emily picked up a glass from the tray in the center of the table and poured herself a glass of orange juice. Ethel looked at her husband. "That's when I think you pulled your helmet off and slammed it into Donald Ducky Richardson's gut and dropped him with a left uppercut when he came at you, because you had escaped several of his sack attempts throughout the first half of the game and into the third quarter." "That's right," Silver nodded. "Those bastards put a bounty on your head, Chris. Their coach got fired and a lifetime banned from coaching. He shot his mouth off to a few of their fathers after the game that night, and that they had plans to take you not only out of the game, but to put you out for the rest of the year. Basically, to end your football career. That's why Claire was transferred. It was her father that overheard it being said and reported it. He pulled her the next day, and she became a lioness." Emily continued to nod. "Yep, after the apology to Maggie May, Maggie May brought her to the squad and asked if she could try out. Anyone big enough to apologize for a mistake they really weren't part of. Basically, she got pulled into it to defend herself when all hell was breaking loose. She had nothing to do with it or the setup, but got caught in the middle. Rannella had her try out, and damn, she was good. She made the squad on the first try, and that's what contributed to the shit with the Carl broads being pissed because they wanted on the squad to get to Mac, and they didn't have what it took. Claire busted her rear and worked hard. She fit right in with us. She did the aerial backflip with Lottie, and Mama Licorice got her to join the gymnastics squad. She coaches that part of the team now. Ethel poured herself a glass of juice. Oh yes, Claire was good. And Ducky, he was part of the original bullshit. He was Jeanette's, then Gigolo, and later the father of her kids. Even though his own marriage to another woman ended in a divorce, and because of his playing the field with her, he's apparently back with Jeanette now. Chris, Sonny had blood pouring from her scalp, because when the rumble started with that bitch, with what Jeanette did, she caught Sonny with that post top they used to measure out the yard lines for the whiting on the field. She would have caught Rannella, as blind as she was, and already, possibly with a concussion, she would have killed her queen. All because Jeanette's asshole boyfriend, Ducky Richardson, made a move on Rannella, and Jeanette had put him up to it, and had plans. If she took the bait, she was going to have him record their date. Rannella wasn't interested to begin with, so she told him very eloquently and ladylike that you should be with one of your 4 other girlfriends besides Jeanette, and stop picking up our strays. Strays? None of any of you were ever strays. What the fuck? She swung a yard striper? Chris slammed his mug down. Shit. Back then, the 70s and 80s, their damn things were the top of a steel T-fence pole they cut off at the 3-foot height to measure the field lines, not the flexible fiberglass shit that they use today. Well, quarterback, Jeanette got her hands on one of those somehow. Chris, she wielded it like it was a Louisville Slugger baseball bat. Sonny deflected most of the blow because of her ESP, and she had a prior vision, but she still took a hell of a shot, and it opened her wide to the skull. The bandages Lottie managed to put on her head before we took to the field were already soaked and matted through from the freezing weather to begin with. But this made her look like someone had tried to eat her brains out of one of the old zombie movies. Ethel shuddered at the mere thought of the memory. Emily blew out her breath. Rannella was freezing. Her getting soaked was one thing, but one of us getting hurt like that. She turned us loose, and she's fighting blind against Donna Bowles. The Queen's eyes were frozen shut. That's when it dawned on all of us, and we all knew she was a true Irish witch. She had extra senses, and believe me, she was using them, 'cause Donna couldn't touch her. When Mac reached for Sonny, though, Rannella made the statement by yelling at him, "Mac, don't look at her. Face her. Sonny, it's your Mac." Then Sonny said, I remember her warning like it was just minutes ago. She was completely calm and very quiet as she stated, "I know you're behind me, Mac. I saw this brawl in a vision. Michael Greystone McMichaels, unless you want to be carried off the field like Hap is going to have to be in mere minutes and never be able to give us children, don't touch me. I'm wired and very dangerous right now. Let me finish this and you can take care of me. I'll need you then." Max stopped and looked towards where he'd last seen Happy. That was just as Bet was thrown backwards by Pam Handler and Beverly Smith. Melba Morales got behind her and caught her on the back of the knees. That's where her knee injuries came from. That happened long before the Olympic skater shit in Detroit in 1994. Bet slammed her head with our comb piece of the lion's head made of heavy ironwood into Happy. Her headpiece caught Hap right between the legs. All of the men around the table closed their eyes and winced. Chris actually squirmed. The ladies bit their lips simultaneously. That thought hurts, don't it, guys? Emily grinned. They all nodded. Chapter 107. Please go on, Chris grimaced. You guys, he went down like he was hit by a Mack truck. That support cup of yours didn't do shit against our lion's headpieces, Emily nodded. Sonny nailed Jeanette with a left cross, and I'm pretty sure she used a bit of psychic power in the strength behind the blow. 'Cause Janet flew back by 3 feet, and Sonny got the marker off of her. Ethel poured herself more coffee. Anybody else need some? Silver held out his cup. It seemed to float into her hands. I never saw anything like that. Yes, she, like Stevie, can do some scary-ass shit when she wants to. Yes, we were a coven of witches. But this is why, when we lost Poppy and Rannella, we chose hands down to have Sonny as our high priestess. After all, she was the second in charge as it was. So we automatically asked her to lead us. Emily rested her hands on Silver's shoulder. Ethel fixed her coffee, took a sip, and nodded in approval. She planted it over her, let me see how to say this as the children are here, over her maiden spoil, and said, this started 6 months ago when Rannella decked you and pounded perfection and excellence car into pudding for making a move on my Mac, and I was indisposed, and you sent your ass of a gigolo to try to make a fool of our queen, and she told him to go fuck one of his 5 bitches he was playing with. If you want to have she looked up at Mac, excuse the term, not to insult my cats, but if you want to have a pussy left when this is over so you can be laid by one of your expensive horses, don't come anywhere near our men. She then put a little pressure on and stay the fleck away from our queen. And I'll tell you this, Sonny meant business. Jeanette screamed for Mac to help. He didn't move. It was Rannella, as she laid Donna out cold with a right hook, that, feeling around, took the marker from Sonny. When Sonny turned to face Mac, her face was a solid mass of blood. She looked like a scene out of Carrie after the pig's blood was dumped on her at the prom. Her forehead made her look like she'd been fed on by the living dead in the Night of the Living Dead films. Ethel blew out a breath. Wow, he believed her then, Storm leaned forward. When she came out of the hospital with 31 stitches in her head and around her left eye, that night he started to call her. Chris and Silver both chuckled. My witchy woman, they said together. He still does, Silver smiled. We all spent part of that night in emergency at St. Mary's. Chris shook his head. Damn straight we did, Silver agreed. Back to Bet, though, Ethel said. She went apeshit like a Texas tornado could in Kerry Von Erich. Who? Storm looked at his older sister. Tootie made a face and shrugged. All right, you guys are way too young. Kerry Von Erich was part of the Von Erich family out of Texas. He was a young wrestler when we were in our teens. Anyway, her hap is down, and her headpiece caused it, and she's on her rear end. Her Danish temper blew, and she exploded at the same time Licorice had decked Krista Bentley, and Lottie's then boyfriend, soon-to-be husband, Gabriel Applegate, who was, as I said, our lion mascot, had just decked Alan Deacon while still in the full lion's costume and was on his way to try to protect her. She swung around as one of the Red Hawks linebackers came up behind him, while Reuben, Jewel, and Damien were fighting their own battles. Jewel and Damien with Reuben, they were our three male cheerleaders who spotted us in our jumps and flips. Well, the three of them had just kicked ass on the Red Hawks kicker, Brian Waterston, punter, Jerry Buttersworth, and water boy, Nathan Rowley, who had been stupid enough to think, because our guys were cheerleaders, that they were wimps. And Phil, your grandfather, Storm, is whooping ass on their cornerback, Thomas Pims. Yes, the bitch's brother. Lottie took off at a run and screamed, "Rush is gunning for my Gabe," as she ran towards them. They knew what she was up to. Reuben broke towards her to run past in the opposite direction to try to draw Rush's attention, giving the other guys the chance to ready themselves for her patented move. She was right, Emily nodded. Oh, boy, was she right ever, Chris agreed. Rush hated Gabe because Gabe exposed Rush's brother for taking credit for a paper he plagiarized and got him booted out of MIT the prior summer. Ethel drank the last of her juice. Well, the other two guys, they planted their weight and readied themselves. Lottie jumped and slammed both feet into their hands, and they lifted and threw her. Lottie did a backward flip over Gabe's head. This caused him to turn in that stupid-ass costume as she twisted and turned in mid-air in a backward somersault like she did on the gymnastics team. And he saw Wilbur Rush coming at him. What happened next is still unbelievable and still talked about to this day. Lottie landed on Rush's shoulders, sprayed legs around the back of his neck, and ripped his helmet off, and that's where she tore the muscle in her wrist, as he was forced forward by her planted weight. As she toppled back to land in the arms of Reuben, she slammed her right foot into the turf. But being so awkwardly off balance as she went backwards and trying not to land on Reuben because she'd seen him holding his ribs, and that was from him going down with Rannella's weight. And then Nathan Rowley caught him in the side with a metal chair. She broke two of her toes in the landing. He wound up with cracked ribs. Gabriel Applegate, all 5'3" of him. Gabe at that point hadn't hit his growth spurt yet, and that would put him over 6 foot. He nailed that SOB right in the nose, clobbered that sucker as he was staggering forward, and had been leveled down from 6'7" to about Gabe's height, and within his reach, and Gabe dropped him like a ton of bricks, and he broke his right hand. He broke the ass's nose and fractured both cheekbones with that hit. Shit, yeah, Silver pumped his arthritic fist. What Rush didn't realize was, well, Gabe was state champion, Golden Gloves flyweight. He was the geek in our crew, but came from a long line of boxers. He was related somehow to Jim Braddock, somehow on his mother's side, I think it was. Ethel shook her head. He was wearing that costume to rush getting nailed by a fluffy, fuzzy, moth-eating lion was the funniest thing going. Somebody has to have a video of that somewhere. We'll have to check Papu's video collection. He used to film all the games for us, along with the action that took place on the sidelines for our cheerleading squad. I would bet anything there's got to be several of those videos. Shame he's gone too. He started Shekel and Enteen's interest when Fred Donaldson had no clue and walked away from his teenage son and his nephew by marriage. The man couldn't understand the expertise that those two boys had with their electronics and their computer stuff. Of course, no one ever said Freddie was a nice guy. Nah, he wasn't. Chris picked up his coffee to finish it. Shekel's stepfather, Frank Shear. He adopted him and took Enteen under his wing as well when he would be here during the summertime. Did well with both of them and still is always there as grandpa and great uncle. He and Caroline had been married since Shek's freshman year. Emily sighed. We lost Gabe on the coal. Our bet, though, man, no one expected her to lose it the way she did because she's so quiet and calm around everybody. And we all know now, never piss her off when she can get within reach of you. I can still see the next move of hers in my mind's eyes. Vicious, I will tell you that. Storm, Tootie, RCC, Nicholas, have any of you ever read Salem's Lot? Nick, you may be too young. RCC, I'm not sure if you should read it as of yet. No, Nana, I haven't read it. And I have read it. And Tootie has the DVD. We watched it on Halloween. RCC likes Rob Lowe. It's cool. It's not all blood and guts, but like the slasher movies are. You need to use your imaginations. And the Barlow isn't like the monster in the old movie. Your imagination that can be scarier, Grandma, than what they show with the blood and gore. Nicky smiled. And Rutger Hauer, even though he's old enough to be my father, Tootie waved a hand in front of her face, having Ghram look at her with a raised eyebrow. Sorry, Daddy, but he was hot in his younger days. You should have seen him and won it, dead or alive, as the descendant of the part played by Steve McQueen in the TV series When We Were Kids, Ethel smiled. That had Chris's head swivel to look up at her. He was Dutch, blonde-haired and blue-eyed. His body wasn't as good as yours is, Iceman, Emily smiled and popped him in the back of the head with her knuckle. And what are you looking at? Silver asked his wife. Okay, well, the scene in the book where Barlow slams Mark Petrie's parents together and there's a sickening crack of skulls. Bettina Borge, now Boone, is almost 6'4". She's a perfect match for Happy 6'7". Unlike Grandpa and me, where we're like Mutt and Jeff. He's got me by over 1.5 feet in height. She slammed them together and left the three of them lying in the snow. The three of them didn't wake up for 2 days in their infirmary. As for Peg and Gil, Silver looked over his shoulder at Emily. I only got part of that story, the guy's side of it. What actually happened with them? Oh, the other two to your badass set of triplets? Your identical twin sisters? Emily smiled. Twin sisters? Storm looked at Tootie. Triplets? She turned to him, then looked at Silver. Wait a minute. Triplets? Really? Storm raised an eyebrow. Chris poured himself another cup of Java, fixed it, and sipped his coffee. You didn't know that Silver is part of a set of fraternal triplets, with the girls being identical twins? I thought they were siblings. I mean, I knew Aunts Gilly and Peggy were twins, but I didn't know. I'm the dividing line. Gilly, me, then Peggy. I do know the two of them fought back to back. I don't know who they fought. Bambi Crest and Sandy Belize. And this was a rivalry to begin with them two bitches and what they pulled on your sisters over the years. Chapter 108. Wait a moment. The two of them caused trouble for the girls before the brawl. Silver looked at them. These two were jealous of the two most beautiful set of twin girls in our class, and they hated the fact that they had money, honey, and you and the girls to them were street trash, and damn them both to the bowels of hell for it. They repeatedly went after the twins any time they had a chance. It was on at the Oxford Valley Mall or the Neshaminy Mall. They pulled the shit if they saw them hiking the trails in Washington's Crossing, or when your sisters worked as tour guides on the historical train rides. But the society that ran the trains knew about it and banned them, so the twins had some peace when they were working, Emily explained. And those two bitches meant business. They carried or got their heads on the weapons they could, Ethel grumbled. Yet, for those two bitches, no amount of their money could give them the beauty and elegance your sisters had and still do, even after Berkshire gave them both tummy tucks and several facelifts and boob jobs and rear-end tucks. As a matter of fact, Gilly gave Bambi a nose job of her very own with a headbutt, with the help of her lion's head pony mane combs. Peggy gave a chin lift to Sandy with an uppercut. They wanted Hut and Pat and were pissed when they went after them, and the guys turned them down cold because they were in love with Gilly and Peggy. Is that what that shit was all about? Silver gave a nod. I remember the girls coming home from shopping, and they'd have bloody knuckles, or they'd come back from a hike with you guys, and they'd play hell getting knots out of their long hair and the brambles and shit, and Poppy be ready to kill. And one of them would say, they're nursing more hurts than we are. And we got Papu, Papa, and Abuelo to kiss our boo-boos and make them better. They ain't got shit, 'cause money don't make up for the family that care. And one of the three, whoever were there, would help to patch up their knuckles and place a gentle kiss on them or on their forehead and tell them to remember to use their left to block anything thrown at their pretty face. Silver sat back and chuckled. Man, my sisters still know how to brawl when they have to. Yes, and the girls appreciated whatever they did, Ethel smiled, including them being taught how to fight. Okay, but to us lions of the front line, it wasn't just my sisters. All our ladies were beautiful and still are. But when Pat and Hut got to them, the guys almost got slugged because they each kissed the wrong twin to calm them down. Both of them said the minute their lips hit my sister's lips, they knew they screwed up and ducked the girls as they cut loose with right crosses simultaneously. The guys danced out of the way so they didn't lose their head. They spun the girls around and kissed the right one, which saved their asses. Silver chuckled, then lifted both of them up over their shoulders and ran like hell for the bus with the girls still shouting that they wanted to take on the world. Effie, didn't Sonny pass out and Mac had to carry her onto the bus? Emily looked at her. Am I remembering that right? Because I know Jack carried Liliana and Colette had help from Phil to handle Coco because of the war, because Coach Blair helped because of the dog's size, and Colette had a broken hand, wrist, and had separated her elbow. Neither Phil or Coach Parker could believe that the dog, once they got a hold of him, stayed right by Colette's side and healed as it sensed she was hurt and couldn't control him. Yes, girlfriend, Ethel nodded. Sonny had 5 extra stitches in her chin from where she passed out getting onto the bus and busted her chin on the steps, just as Mac tried to grab her. With the frozen tundra, his hands were numb. He couldn't feel anything, and she just kind of bounced off his fingertips and hit the top step. Coach Blair, he made sure we were all there and did a head count with Papoose' help, and we took off to the hospital right then and there. And her head, Ethel shook her own head. She still can't grow hair back in the one spot on the left side. Emily just looked at her and just couldn't just say anything. Sadly, her scarves aren't a gimmick, guys. It's to hide the damage that was done. Rannella spent a month in the hospital and another 6 weeks recovering at home from pneumonia, and her breathing was affected the rest of her life, Ethel finished. She always had rapid blinking that affected her eyes from the eyelashes being frozen shut. And then there was the shit that occurred with those bitches over Lottie and Jackson being Afro-American and Polish-Jewish American. When he went to protect his lady, that and Lily, and Samantha Twilcare started those damned rumors before everything that had happened that night, because she saw Jackson take both of them to see a drive-in movie. What was it? Give me a minute. I think it was Grease, if I'm not mistaken. And he stayed close to Liliana and protected Colette, who, I might add, was too young to be dating at only 14. That's the bitch that started the rumor? Chris asked. Yes, it was. The rumor that bitch started was that he had 2 women in his crib. She'd gotten the lowdown from the Carl girls, that he had both of them in his van. Well, yeah, he did. They went to see the movie at the drive-in, and Liliana's wheelchair needed to be put into his van, and she had Coco. She always did. And you know the size of every one of her Coco Chanel. For God's sake, they're Napoleon Bull Mastiffs. They're huge. So what the fuck was she making the shit-ass statement like that for? Liliana shut her mouth up real quick when our sister came out of that wheelchair of hers, 'cause Jack couldn't have stopped her if he tried. She was so pissed at that shit. And stay out of Liliana's way when that combo temper of hers, whatever it's made up of, goes off. Duck for cover. Emily looked at Ethel. That's for damn sure, Ethel agreed. That's when she almost took Samantha's head off her shoulder, when she used the keyboard of that monster of a computer on the cart for her computerized voice box. We are not talking about the laptop she uses today. We're talking full-size computer with a gigantic mainframe attached to her electric wheelchair. She used the keyboard to use it to beat the bitch in the head. And then Coco, was he number 3 or 4? I don't remember. Emily scratched the side of her head. But he went in front of them to give Jack a chance to get her up in his arms and get her back in the chair, and backed off the 2 brothers that came, the Wentworths. Emily twirled a finger in her long hair. Oh, those 2 bastards. Silver shook his head. Ori and Sext had been battling with them 2 for years, and they don't know when to stay the hell down. Orr and Sext are badasses in their own right. Joey and Dylan are just plain stupid asses. No wonder, though, they're Ducky's cousins. They were going for Jack, and Coco stood its ground to protect his back. The dog was protecting its girl's man and chased them across the field as it dragged Coach Blair behind him when he grabbed the dog's collar and tried to stop Coco from getting in the fray. Ethel smiled. Coach wound up soaked from that ride, as I remember, Chris snickered. Yeah, he was brushing snow from his hair, jacket, and beard, and the beard had icicles hanging from it. Silver reached for his mug of coffee. F, another cup, please? She poured him the hot black gold. But the dingbat, Samantha, didn't know when to keep her mouth shut and lipped off and called them the M-word, followed by lovers, and added a rather nasty term when she referred to the girls as street hoes working for their pimp, and that gave Colette the opportunity she wanted, even as young as she was at 14, and she was waiting for, because she had had it with that bitch calling her and Reuben spick and span. As young as she was, she went into action and she pummeled that bitch, broke her left hand, wrist, and dislocated her elbow with an uppercut thrown so hard it shattered Samantha's jaw, a jaw that was wired shut for 16 months, and she had to have reconstructive surgery that had to be done along with implant dentistry. That's why our Colette has problems now with hand quilting, because the arthritis is set in, and Abuelo Cord purchased a big quilting sewing machine from Tip that's set up in the side room of the bridal and formal wear store for all of us to use to finish off our quilts. Emily picked up the empty dishes and started for the kitchen. I'm placing these in the sink. We'll wash them later. Ethel did the same as they returned. She continued with the old story. It was several years later when Samantha, it turned out to be, the one who basically was Grantley's eyes for any woman that might be vulnerable, and she helped him to screw over all those women, including Colette. But Colette got the last laugh when she unmasked the bastard and put both of them behind bars for 20 years. Now Samantha is living with him, and they can't put 2 cents together to pay the rent. Her parents cut her off cold when they found out what she had been part of. If their two sons that got busted with Gilbert and Polly Boy, and the Lambert son, Timothy, for breaking into the house Grandma Shelley and Abuelo Cordero were selling to Annie and Dima, they deserved the books thrown at them. Grandma, did this Janet Pims and the others get in trouble? Well, I really don't think so. Auntie Claire said and holds to this, that she thinks their daddy's money brought somebody off, and the schools figured we laid the smackdown on them pretty good, and we ourselves were nursing some injuries. I do know that the next time our two teams played, we had to protect Aunt Claire. They deemed her as a turncoat and were gunning for her. That was another rumble in the jumble in our parking lot, and Claire laid Janet out cold with a fabulous moolah or Mae Young elbow shot right between the eyes. Fabulous moolah? Storm asked as he looked at Tootie once again. I know of Miss Mae Young, Tootie nodded. I had both their autographs and a photo of them with me and Daddy Ice. Storm, they were beautiful lady wrestlers. They started in the 1940s, I think, and had a lifelong friendship. Miss Moolah passed in 07 and Miss Young in, I think, 14. They're laid to rest in the same cemetery in Columbia, South Carolina. Beautiful and elegant ladies, and it wasn't the stuff you see in the ring today. Those two ladies could wrestle the right way. She nodded with a smile. Very true. Well, there were issues over the years, a lot of them. Anytime Jeanette was in the vicinity of Rannella, the sparks would fly, and Rannella went gunning for her. Your grandma, Rannella, she looked at Emly. Go for it, girlfriend. The truth will set you free. And Nellie was proud of that night, and wouldn't have you lie for the life of her. Emily smiled. Besides, my sister, you were the one that wore the beer and beef platter with the spaghettis and meatballs and the loaded nachos that night, topped with the chili cheese fries and 2 milkshakes. I was behind you and only got mashed potatoes and gravy and a couple of beers dumped on me. Chapter 109. Storm looked at the woman. You wore food? When did this happen, Grandma? Can you say food fight at the Irish pub? Chris laughed. Rannella had one charge on a police record. It was a minor one that was eventually dropped altogether, but it taught Jeanette that Rannella was not someone to screw with. Jeanette passed a remark at the party at the O'Shaughnessy's one night. Rannella warned her twice, both times it was, why don't you just grow up? And you really need to get a life, you know that? If you want him, there he is, you can have him. That was in front of witnesses. The place was packed. It was an O'Shaughnessy anniversary party for Mr. and Mrs. Old Sean. When Rannella went to go to the ladies' room, Jeanette blocked the way. The Queen tried to step around her. Twice. Ethel held up 2 fingers. Finally, Rannella told her, you move or I will move you. Jeanette made the mistake of attempting to lay a hand on the Queen. Only she didn't lay a hand on Rannella. She took a swing. Rannella grabbed her fist thrown and called out, George, come get one of your bitches or I will finish this and your ass will be on the street. George stood and stated, go ahead, I want to see a cat fight. You're kidding, Storm looked at her. No, I'm not. He apparently thought Grandpa would try to take him on because he had a few friends with him, Emily stated. He was hoping so anyway, only it wasn't me that stood, Chris said. It was Uncle Rasputin, and then one of Georgie Porgy's friends stood. So did Czar. Oh, shit. One blow to the chops from Rasp, and Georgie Porgy was out cold on the floor. That's right, Crazy Legs. The other ass sat down and didn't move until the ambulance got there. Once again, Rannella tried to step around Jeanette, and that's when Jeanette made the mistake of shoving your grandmother. The Queen took the push, stepped back, and tried to turn around to go to the bar. At that point, Jeanette grabbed her by the shoulder, and Rannella braced herself. She turned, and Jeanette slapped her across the face. That was after being warned at least 4 times, and once by the O'Shaughnessy family, and George being laid out cold on the floor in front of her dumbass. Rannella's head snapped back, and, well, sparks exploded, and Rannella literally was like the Tasmanian devil. Platters started to fly, and it was a mess. What ended it was when Rannella created a whirlwind and the family crest come off the wall and laid out Jeanette in the middle of the floor. It was all over but the shouting in about 10 minutes. They called for an ambulance. Rannella had accidentally wet her pants, but Jeanette and George spent overnight in the emergency, and the Queen had the backup in the court that she was provoked more than once that night. George had tried to incite things, and that Jeanette struck first, to which Rannella was left with the only choice of defending herself or being injured, and it was all caught on the pub's videotapes, and the charges went from aggravated assault on both she and Rasp. Wasn't it disturbing the peace? Ethel looked around the table. Yes, Chris answered, and then it was ruled self-defense, but Janet was charged with harassment, intoxication in public, creating a public nuisance, incitement, assault and battery, aggravated assault, and a few other charges, and convicted. That's the night George was handed the DUI because he drove home from the hospital while still drunk and blew a twice the legal limit when he was stopped in Langhorne. She was put on probation for several years. He lost his license, and that started the carpool with Peggy he didn't like. And Mr. Sean banned Jeanette and George from ever walking into the pub again. And then, I think it was a couple of weeks later, wasn't it, babe? He threw Rannella a badass witch party after the court stuff was settled. Yeah, you're right on that. He did. Oh, and that was the best party. Ethel rinsed out her coffee mug and turned to look at Emly. Wasn't there something several years ago, something at the shop? I know it was Jeanette, but was it sunny? What am I thinking of? Late spring. It's there, but not there, you know? Emily sighed. I know what you're thinking of. Mayday. Sonny was doing psychic readings, tarot cards, crystals, runes, and Rannella was behind the counter with Merlin. I was stocking, and Edward and Jonathan were doing inventory for their herbs. We needed a restock. You were busy because of the day. I remember that, Ethel smiled. Yes, and Early was in to help on her day off. Jeanette walks in. Rannella didn't react. She just sat there petting Merlin. She lit the incense and looked into Poppy's crystal ball and started to shuffle the cards to do a multi-card spread of the tarots. Janet came up to her at the counter and Rannella turned the last card as Janet stated. We need to talk. You and I. That's what I'm remembering. But I thought it was Sonny who... No, Emly shook her head. It was Rannella's deck that did the reading, not Sonny's. Rannella looked at the cards, held her hand up, and called me over. I thought at first it was to keep Sonny and Jeanette from getting into it. But instead, she said, Emly, I trained you. Tell me what the cards say. I looked down, and she stepped aside to gaze into the crystal ball. I wasn't sure at first as to what I was seeing, but then it was right in front of me. The Wheel of Fortune, the World, the Lovers, the Falling Tower, the Fool, the Queen of Pentacles. I told her it was a turning of tides in a relationship. Someone was being stupid, him, and would destroy everything for himself and his material gains. The Queen no longer cared. She didn't give a shit. Things would have to be rebuilt. The final card was inverted. That final card was that of death. But that card can also mean rebirth. It depends on the position, and I wasn't there when she laid them out and didn't know her question. It was the first time I had ever known Rannella to use the mirror spread, and I wasn't sure, but I could sense something was up. I think all of us knew in one way or another, but none of us expected murder, much less a quadruple homicide. It still doesn't feel right, and this still isn't finished. None of the covens think so. But that spread, she said, very good. Then looked at Jeanette and said, you heard what the cards have to say. If you want, you can head the fucker, like I told you over the summer at the pub. I meant what I said. I don't give a fuck when it comes to him. We're through. It has been for a long time. You should know, however, he is disease-riddled, both physically and mentally, and before you start any rumors, you bitch, the lionesses have loved me enough over many years that they have allowed me to be loved by every lion in the front line, any way, shape, or form, in any position they or I want to try, in my bed or in the bedroom of one of the cottages or at the inn, and in every way, and all those men are 100% better lovers and more male than he could ever dream of being in his pathetic dreams and disgusting fantasies, with that tiniest pecker ever to be produced. So small, you bitch, you'll need a magnifier to see it, an inkling of the size of it. So small and teeny-weeny that a newborn would be ashamed of it. To which I would gladly have an orgy with any and all of those men of the front lines and their lionesses, because they give me the pleasure I've always craved with an abundance of love and caring. He wouldn't be able to pleasure an eel in the throes of an egg laying with its spawn. You take that back to him and tell him to put it in his pipe and smoke it. I would give birth to any one of their children if I had the chance to have aborted his bastard. I have enjoyed these men's company in and out of my bed since he was kicked to the curb all those years ago, as he has not spent a night in my bed since I was 6 months along with the bastard child I gave birth to. You take this back to him, too. If you obtain him, he comes with no finances from my estate or that of my parents. My personal accounts are mine, not connected to him. He is flat fucking broke except for his illegal gotten gains, and he is being looked into currently by the IRS and the FBI. Now get out before I go dark." Emily shuddered and looked at Ethel. "What did I just say?" She blew out a breath. "I think it wasn't you." Ethel looked at her. "I think Rannella just came through." "Well, hey, Queen." Emily looked around the table. Jeanette took off and hasn't been in the shop since. When I asked Rannella who the card draw was for, she said she was just screwing around. Ghram looked at her. "Aunt Emily, Rannella didn't just screw around when it came to any type of craft. She would never go dark." Ghram shook his head. She knew he was. Storm looked from one to another. "I don't think she was playing. I now think, after what's just happened here, she may have known they were going to be murdered. That once she gave George those papers, it was a matter of time." Ghram looked at his children. Rannella was very tuned into New Hope's rumors, and if there were anything on George, she would have known it. But this, Aunt Emily, she just came through you. I've never seen that. Am I right in that it's rarely and no more arcade cards are turned than the cards of the suits, unless you're purposely doing the arcade deal. I don't ever remember Rannella's deck being separated to do that, nor did she ever set her deck. She shuffled after every spread, then made 3 taps on the back of the deck, but never put them back in any particular order. She always stated the cards would do as they pleased. Correct. There's no way to snooker or stack a tarot card deck. To begin with, why would you? You want the truth. Second, Rannella and Poppy, and before any of your generation was thought of, our parents, except Chris and Silvers, who moved here in junior high school and were brought in. Silver with Peggy and Gilly through Rannella herself and us girls. Chris through our Russians, because their mom, Bubby Valkyrie, saw he didn't get on the school bus the first day of school and was walking home. Bubby Khrushchev pulled up to him and asked if she could drive him home. Emily smiled. They were trusted and known for the cards, tea leaves, crystals, runes, and many witchcraft reading abilities, and they did not pull any punches. They told it like it was for all the generations that resided in New Hope. Chapter 110. Chris picked up his coffee to drink. That was a memorable meeting. We lived a block away from them. We had just moved in, here in this home. Pops and Annie purchased a house down the street from them. Grandfather Franklin next to them with Grandmom. They had lived there for years. Your mom, grew up in this neighborhood. They still live in the next block. And your great-grandparents, when Pops lost Nanny at age 90, the old man and Ma decided to move in with him, and we had already purchased a house from them years before. So they took over here to take care of him. Then, when we made the move to the inn, Jim and Chrissy already had their homes, and we made the arrangements with Ghram. So the families owned the houses next to theirs on either side. Uncle Czar and Rasputin bought the houses across the street when each of them married. Back then, it all began in the early 70s when we moved down here from Brighton Beach, from Bridgewater in Massachusetts. I was the new kid in school all those years ago. I got handed a bunch of shit in the locker room about my New England accent the last class of the day on the first day I attended school. It was Georgie Porgy that started it, and Bobby Randall with Frank Collier. I didn't know anyone, so I was outnumbered and didn't want Molly, who was 2 years my junior, to get hassled. We had only moved into town the weekend before Labor Day. With helping the folks and our grandparents, I didn't meet anyone. I had seen the huge bookends in the neighborhood. That's right. Silver rubbed his chin. You're the one who nicknamed them the big badass Russian bookends, and it stuck. They liked it. Silver picked up his coffee to finish. Yeah, but in the week before school, I didn't know anyone and was too scared to approach them. Their sheer size was terrifying and so dominating. At age 12, they're a year and almost 2 years younger than Silver and me. So both of them were just 11, almost, and standing at almost freaking 6'2" and over 200 pounds. And it was solid muscle even back then. Ghram, your mom here, of course, caught my eye with that beautiful dark red hair of hers and gorgeous brown eyes. But she was hanging with them, and I knew she had brothers. I thought she was their sister, though. So, I'll admit, I chicken shitted out in approaching her to talk to her. I didn't know Bubby had brought the cake and casserole over to Mom Franklin. English, blah. I didn't know Bobby had brought a cake and a casserole over with Mom Franklin's English cottage pie to welcome my folks as the newcomers into the neighborhood and introduced Poppy, Nana Pagine, and Grandmama Rose to them. On the first day of school, she pulled up to ask if I wanted a ride home. I told her I appreciated it, but I could walk. She looked me up and down and said, "Nyet, not with those 3 asses following you, you won't." I didn't realize I was being followed, and when I looked, sure enough, there was George and his buddies. I thanked her, and when I got in, then saw the size of her sons, I almost shit. Like I said, they terrified me. The 2 of them, the size of Ilya and Salazar, and stone cold silent. It turned out they heard about the shit from Happy. George had been shooting his mouth off that they told her and pointed me out to her. At the time, no member of Mandula was in my gym class. I took the front seat of her car. They had the whole back seat of an almost brand new 1973 Lincoln Continental town car before they came to be known as the town car. They were just called the Lincoln Continental sedan back then, and they looked like she'd gotten them in there with a shoehorn. I found out later from them that they had to put their book bags in the trunk because otherwise they would get stuck and cramped up in the seat. Chris sipped his coffee. And this monster car was her baby. Dad Alexei had a 64 Lincoln with the suicide doors. They still have the 2 of them. Yep, they do. When Pennsylvania started phasing out lead fuel, we went to work and rebuilt both into unleaded and kept the compression up. Silver sipped his coffee, then turned the cup over to prevent any more. I'm done. Iron kidneys have gone to tin. She said something to him, to them in Russian, and received a da from both, which she explained meant yes in Russian. And I was introduced, and the next day the two of them transferred into my gym class, with Hap and John. I didn't meet the rest until the weekend, and then not Silver for at least a week to 10 days. Why was that, Silver? Silver sat quiet for a moment as he ran his finger around the bottom of his coffee mug, then shrugged. I think I may have been packing up our campsite. The girls were already settled. Poppy and Theo may have just gotten custody of us, and he and Abuelo Cordero and PayPal Sidney may have taken me, Reuben, and Jackson. Yeah, the 59 Ford station wagon. We were loading that beast with our stuff from the old mill that's now the condominiums where Karuk and Alexis own a place. When we had set up camp, Mac's dad and Czar's and Rasputin's father were working with the spooks as code breakers. That was in the middle of the Cold War. Silver set back. Never mind. I didn't meet you until the following Saturday because I was dealing with medical issues and they were trying to figure out if something could be done with the optic nerve damage I'd suffered from call. I was at St. Christopher's in Philly that week for testing. After we packed up our camp, I don't think Theo, Sidney, or Cordero were home from Vietnam more than a year. But when we met, you and I had the, shall we say, little chuckle over our names. He, Papu, was still recovering from the grenade blast that he was critically injured in, and all three could have lost their lives if he hadn't slammed that mattress and the table or a bunk over a grenade when Chris? Who was charged and investigated over that in the 90s? Ghram looked from one man to the other. Shit, Dad, that's why the Carlsons left for upstate. George's father was under investigation for that by the Army Board of Inquiries. He was charged after the facts came out. Papu spent 3 years on and off at Walter Reed and underwent multiple surgeries, didn't he? I know Abuelo and PayPal still need recurring checks on the injuries they sustained. Abuelo's legs and feet and PayPal's back and shoulder. It was the old man that dug them out of there, wasn't it? Yes, it was your grandfather. That's why when Nana's contract ended in Bridgewater and she had it in Bridgewater, and Ford was shutting down up there, they looked down here. Dad knew them all, and they welcomed him. And when Nana approached the school district, they signed a 15-year contract with her. But with Vietnam, a door opened, a grenade was lobbed in, they tried to move, they cleared the table, and Papu yanked the mattress from the cot. That thing blew, exploded the table, chairs, and everything with it. PayPal was thrown against the water tank and with his back blown open. Abuelo was backpedaling and took the hit to his legs and feet, and he stumbled and landed on the mattressless cot, and Papu caught the brunt of it trying to protect Colonel Bloomington, Ruby's grandfather. That wood was like arrows. It penetrated the mattress and just tore through the whole thing. He lost one testicle and the second was badly damaged. It couldn't produce enough sperm, and from what he explained, what it did produce were weakened and malformed so badly they wouldn't produce a baby. The colonel he tried to protect survived and was the man who started the investigation and asked if I would assist when they received the information from the man who threw the grenade, from his family, that he'd been in a psychiatric ward for years and wanted to talk to someone about this and what he knew. That's how I got involved. Chris blew out a breath. Silver nodded. It was old man Carlson that hired someone, the private that your father's talking about, with the mental illness to do the fragging. He gave a full confession on his deathbed, but that was years after the three of them, Papu, Yaya, and Rannella, were gone. The information was presented at the hearing, and Carlson was dead by then. But he, the old man, Carl, moved them when the investigation started, didn't he? They weren't here for the final information to come out. Chris finished his coffee. Yeah, that's why they couldn't have any more children after Rannella was born. The day I met the Russians, I was told to talk to my folks about what happened. It was Poppy's mother, Nana Pagina, that owned Mystic Moments at the time and the lands beyond the footbridge. She was the first one I ever saw use tarot cards. It was she who taught Nana Calhoun how to read them, and they became fast friends because Nana could open up to them about the history of the Irish Jews, the fact that her ancestors had originated in Austria-Hungary and fled to come to France and into Ireland and then into Bridgewater. They understood because of their own background. Nana Pagine was born in 1925, and Grandmama Rose was still with us then. He looked at Ethel. 1900, wasn't she born in? Yes. Rose was the youngest and only girl of 14 born to Elsa and Rob, and Elsa was the only daughter and the youngest of 7 to be born to the original owners of the store, James Michael Houlihan and Mary Catherine Bibby Shahanigan, who was the niece of Bibby Early, which is who Silver and my Early is named for. Bibby is Stevie's middle name, and we were taught by Nana Pagine and Grandmama Rose the cards have a spirit. They do not lie, as you know. Now, they can be misread. Starting out, I was very glad to have Poppy, Pagina, and Rose, who all corrected with a gentle hand, Emily exclaimed. Mom, Emily, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that business was passed down through the female side of the family, correct? Yes, and when Rannella didn't have a daughter, she asked if I and Sonny would be interested in purchasing half of the business and the building so we can continue the tradition, and Sonny could have the upstairs after her building and Winnebago Brave were destroyed by fire. We could hand it down to Early and Stevie as they are named for part of the family. We agreed, but only if we could set up a trust for you and have it governed by the Mandula Foundation. Early has said she wants to talk to Stevie about the things that have been acknowledged in the last day since Ghram is Rannella's as well as Chris and Ethel's. And I quote, "Can't we consider Ghram part female so we can share with him? After all, he is the cog in our witch's wheel. He centers us, and is queer in more ways than one." Ghram busted out laughing. Those two witches. So Storm looked at his father. Dad? Kids, they are like Chrissy. They are fun as hell. But watch out for Stevie. She can control electrical pulses. She has been known to zap Jess and set his hair to look like a Zulu's. Okay, Early is Ricer's wife, Romeo and Getty's folks, and they have Sierra and Avita. And Stevie is married to Rain, and they have got it. But seriously, Dad, I don't think Reed ever inherited Grandma Rannella's skill. But Storm looked at Ghram. Dad, I've seen your deck on the salted plate on your desk. Are you drawn to anything else? Ghram raised an eyebrow. Then he looked at Chris. And there we have it so far. Storm is finding more things out about the family that is his and about his father and what's gone on over the years. He's also come to find out that there are gifts in the family that aren't always talked about. When we continue on in the next reading, we will see where this leads. And if you remember, Reed and Reggie have made plans, and they've made threats. What will happen? Where will this lead? Will Ghram be all right? Will Storm be safe? These are questions that still need to be answered. If you enjoyed this, and I hope you did, please hit like. If you enjoy the series so far and the readings, please hit subscribe. Therefore, you will be given notification when the next one comes out. And yes, folks, we are getting close to the end of this story. The next one will begin directly after. Thank you, and blessings to you. So mote it be.